The signal came on a Tuesday morning. It traveled across the empty darkness of space for 300 years before reaching Earth. When the scientists at the Global Space Agency finally decoded it, they found a simple message. It said, "You are not alone. We come in peace. We wish to meet you." Humanity had waited for this moment for centuries. They had looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. Now they had their answer. The Galactic Council, a union of 4,000 peaceful species, had found Earth. They wanted to say hello. Ambassador Una Park read the message 17 times. She was a small woman with tired eyes and gray hair. She had spent her whole life preparing for something like this. She had studied languages, cultures, and diplomacy, but nothing had prepared her for talking to aliens. "What do we do?" asked her assistant, a young man named Tae-ho. Una looked out the window at the blue sky. Somewhere up there, alien ships were waiting. "We do what humans have always done," she said. "We prepare for the worst and hope for the best." 3 weeks later, Una stood on the bridge of the Starship Horizon. It was humanity's finest vessel, built over 50 years with technology from every nation on Earth. Around it floated 300 other warships. They formed a wall of metal and fire between Earth and the incoming alien vessel. Admiral Tae-kang stood beside her. He was a tall man with a scarred face and cold eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before the world finally found peace. Now he commanded humanity's entire space fleet. "The alien ship is entering the solar system," said a young officer at her station. Her name was Su-min, and her hands were shaking as she read the data. "It is very small, Admiral. No weapons detected. No shields. It is completely defenseless." Tae-kang frowned. "That makes no sense. Why would they send a defenseless ship?" "Maybe they trust us," said Una quietly. The Admiral shook his head. "Nobody's that trusting. This could be a trick. Keep all weapons ready. Shields at maximum power." The alien ship drifted closer. It looked like a flower made of silver metal, with long petals that caught the light of the sun. It was beautiful in a way that human ships were not. Human ships were built for war. This ship was built for something else entirely. A message came through the communication system. The voice was strange, like music mixed with clicking sounds. The computer translated it automatically. "People of Earth," the voice said, "I am Tybus, emissary of the Galactic Council. We have watched your species for many years. We have seen your struggles and your growth. We come now with open hearts and no defenses. We offer you friendship and a place among the stars." Una felt her heart beating fast. This was it, the moment that would change everything. She stepped forward to the communication panel and pressed the button to respond. "Emissary Tybus," she said, "I am Ambassador Una Park of Earth. We welcome you to our solar system. We have positioned our fleet in defensive formation as a precaution. Please do not be alarmed. We mean you no harm." There was a long silence. On the alien ship, Tybus stared at his viewing screen with all 6 of his eyes. He was an insectoid creature, tall and thin, with delicate wings that had not been used for flying in 10,000 generations. His species had evolved beyond violence, so long ago that they had no word for war in their language. He looked at the human fleet. 300 ships, each one bristling with weapons. Cannons that could crack planets. Missiles that could destroy moons. Shields that glowed with barely contained energy. The humans had aimed all of this at his tiny, defenseless vessel, and they called this a precaution. Tybus had studied human broadcasts for years. He had learned their languages and watched their entertainment. He thought he understood them, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Defensive formation," he whispered to himself. His translator had given him the words, but they made no sense. In the Galactic Council, a defensive formation meant standing behind someone stronger. It meant hiding. It meant hoping the danger would pass. Humans did not hide from danger. They pointed guns at it. Tyvis opened a secure channel to the Galactic Council. His hands were trembling. His voice was barely a whisper. "High Counselor Mara," he said, "I have made contact with the humans. I must report something urgent. Something terrible." The response came immediately. Mara's voice was calm and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "What is wrong, emissary? Are the humans hostile?" Tyvis did not know how to answer. The humans had not fired. They had not threatened him. They had welcomed him with polite words. But those 300 warships told a different story. "They have responded to my peaceful greeting with the largest military force I have ever seen," Tyvis said. "They have thousands of weapons aimed at my ship. They call this being careful." There was a long pause. When Mara spoke again, her voice was no longer calm. "What do you mean, thousands of weapons? The entire Galactic Council has not produced 1,000 weapons in 12,000 years. "I know," said Tyvis. "And yet the humans have created this fleet for a single purpose. They built all of this because they were afraid of what might be hiding in the stars. They were afraid of us. They were afraid of everything." Tyvis watched as another human ship moved into position. Its cannons tracked his vessel with perfect precision. The humans inside were probably not even thinking about it. For them, this was normal. This was how they greeted strangers. "High Counselor," Tyvis said slowly, "I do not think the humans understand what they have done. They believe they are being peaceful. They genuinely think this is a friendly welcome. But from our perspective—" He could not finish the sentence. Mara finished it for him. "From our perspective, they have declared war on the entire galaxy." Tyvis closed all 6 of his eyes. Somewhere on that human ship, Ambassador Unipark was probably smiling, proud of how restrained and welcoming humanity had been. She had no idea that her people had just terrified every peaceful species in the known universe. The humans thought they were afraid. But Tyvis now understood the truth. The galaxy had never known fear until it met humanity. The Galactic Council met on a station that floated at the center of known space. It was a beautiful place, built from crystal and light, designed to show the peace and harmony of 4,000 species living together. For 12,000 years, this station had never known conflict. The word emergency had almost been forgotten. Today, every seat was filled. Delegates from across the galaxy crowded into the great hall, their bodies trembling with an emotion most of them had never felt before. Fear. High Counselor Mara stood at the center of the room. She was a crystalline being, 8 feet tall, her body made of living glass that reflected the lights around her. She had led the council for 300 years. In all that time, she had never called an emergency session. Until now. "Fellow members of the council," she said, her voice ringing like bells, "we face a situation unlike anything in our history. The humans have responded to our offer of peace with a display of military power beyond our understanding." A holographic image appeared above the assembly. It showed the human fleet surrounding Earth. 300 ships of war, each one designed for destruction. The delegates gasped. Some covered their eyes. Others began to weep. "This is impossible," said Counselor Orin, a large amphibian creature with soft green skin. "No species builds weapons like this. It serves no purpose. War is inefficient. War is wasteful. War is ... insane." "And yet," said Mara quietly, "the humans have made war into an art form." She gestured, and the hologram changed. Now it showed images from human history. The council had requested these records as a gesture of friendship, and the humans had sent them gladly. They thought they were sharing their culture. They did not realize they were sharing their nightmares. The delegates watched in horror as human history unfolded. They saw the ancient wars fought with swords and spears. They saw the trenches of the First World War, where millions died in the mud. They saw the bombs falling on cities, the mushroom clouds rising over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Counselor Oren fell from his seat. 2 medical officers rushed to help him. His body had gone into shock. The concept of deliberately destroying a city full of your own species was too much for his mind to process. They killed their own people, whispered a small furry. Delegate named Pip. His entire body was shaking. They burned their own cities with their own weapons. On purpose, yes, said Mara, and they did not stop there. The hologram showed more. Nuclear missiles, biological weapons, poison gas, chemical warfare. The delegates learned that humans had spent centuries finding new ways to kill each other. They had created weapons that could end all life on their planet. And they had built thousands of these weapons, pointing them at each other, waiting. They call this deterrence, Mara explained. They believe that if everyone could destroy everyone else, no one would dare to start a war. That is madness, said a tall, thin delegate whose body was made of living metal. That is absolute madness. And it worked? It worked for them. Mara's crystal body flickered with colors that showed her own fear. They survived. They always survive. That is what makes them so terrifying. The council fell into chaos. Delegates argued. Some demanded that all contact with humans be cut immediately. Others wanted to flee to the far edges of the galaxy. A few suggested surrender, though no one was sure what they would be surrendering to. The humans had not attacked. They had not made demands. They had simply existed, and their existence was the most frightening thing the galaxy had ever known far away. On the planet Earth, Ambassador Una Park sat in her office and stared at her communication screen. It had been 3 days since first contact. 3 days of silence. The alien ship was still there, floating peacefully near Jupiter, but it would not respond to any messages. Why won't they talk to us? She asked. General Hyan-Cho leaned against the wall. He was an older man, heavy and strong, with the tired look of someone who had seen too much death. He led Earth's defense ministry, and he had spent his whole life preparing for threats that never came. Until now. Maybe they are discussing among themselves, he suggested. First contact is a big deal. They probably need time to process it. We were careful, Una said, more to herself than to him. We didn't charge the main cannons. We kept the fleet at a safe distance. We were polite. We were professional. What did we do wrong? Hyan shrugged his big shoulders. Nothing. We did everything right. By our standards, anyway. That was the problem. Una was beginning to understand that their standards might be very different from everyone else's. She pulled up the alien transmission again. We come with open hearts and no defenses. Those words had seemed strange when she first heard them. Why would anyone announce that they had no defenses? It seemed foolish. It seemed dangerous. But now Una wondered if, to the aliens, it was the most natural thing in the world. They came without weapons because they had never needed weapons. They trusted strangers because strangers had never hurt them. They did not understand fear the way humans understood it. And then humanity had responded with 300 warships. Oh no, Una whispered. Oh no, no, no. What is it? Hyan asked. Una stood up so fast her chair fell over. We scared them. We terrified them. They came to us with no defenses, as a sign of trust, and we surrounded them with the biggest fleet in human history. She pressed her hands to her face. They think we threatened them. They think we declared war. Hyan stared at her. That's ridiculous. We were being careful. We were protecting ourselves. From what? Yuna demanded. From a single ship with no weapons? We showed them everything we had. We showed them our guns, our missiles, our shields. We showed them 3 centuries of military development. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. We thought we were being polite. But from their perspective, we just told the entire galaxy that we could destroy them all. The general was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "So what do we do now?" Yuna looked out the window at the sky. Somewhere up there, 4,000 species were discussing humanity, and they were probably all reaching the same conclusion. The newcomers from Earth were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. "We apologize," Yuna said firmly. "We explain ourselves. We show them that we mean no harm." She did not know yet that humanity's idea of an apology would only make things worse. Ambassador Yuna Park spent 2 weeks sending messages to the alien ship. She apologized. She explained. She begged for another chance to prove that humanity was peaceful. Finally, on the 15th day, Emissary Tybus responded. "The Galactic Council will meet with your representatives," the message said. "You may bring a small group to our station. We hope to understand each other better." Yuna felt relief wash over her. This was good. This was progress. She immediately called a meeting with General Hyan Cho and the President of Earth, a calm and thoughtful man named Day One. "They want to meet us," she said excitedly. "They are giving us a second chance. We need to do this right. We need to show them who we really are." President Day One nodded slowly. "What do you suggest?" "I will go personally. I will bring a small team of diplomats. We will be friendly, open, and completely non-threatening." General Hyan frowned. "You cannot go alone. It might be a trap. We do not know these aliens. We do not know what they might do." "They are peaceful," Yuna argued. "They have no military. They came to us with no weapons. That is what they say." Hyan crossed his arms. "But we cannot take that risk. You are too important. If something happens to you, humanity loses its best chance at peace." President Day One raised his hand to stop the argument. "The general has a point. We will send protection, but we will keep it small and respectful." How many soldiers would be appropriate? Yuna thought about it. Maybe 10? 20 at most? Hyan shook his head. 20 soldiers cannot protect against an unknown threat. We need at least a full company. 2,000 Marines should be enough. 2,000? Yuna stared at him. That is not a small group. That is an army. It is an honor guard, Hyan said firmly. Our best soldiers, there to show respect and provide security. The aliens will understand. Everyone understands the importance of protecting important people. Yuna wanted to argue more, but President Day One had already made his decision. 2,000 it is. But they will be on their best behavior. No weapons drawn. No aggressive movements. We are there to make friends, not enemies. 1 month later, the human transport ship arrived at the Galactic Council station. It was a massive vessel, designed to carry soldiers into battle. Ambassador Yuna stood at the front of the loading bay as the doors opened. Behind her, 2,000 Marines stood in perfect rows. They wore their full combat armor, painted in formal black and gold. Their helmets hid their faces. Their weapons hung at their sides, powered down but ready. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply stood, like statues made of metal and discipline. Captain Jin Seo commanded them. She was a young woman with sharp eyes and a voice that could cut through steel. She had trained her Marines for this moment. They were the best humanity had to offer, the most professional, the most controlled, the most terrifying. The doors of the station opened, and the human delegation stepped out. Yuna walked first, smiling warmly, her hands open in greeting. Behind her came the Marines, marching in perfect formation. Their boots hit the floor in unison. Left, right, left, right. The sound echoed through the empty corridor like drums of war. At the end of the corridor, a group of alien delegates waited. There were 12 of them, representing different species. They had volunteered to welcome the humans. Now, watching 2,000 armored soldiers march toward them, they deeply regretted that decision. A small furry creature named Pip stood at the front. He was barely 3 feet tall, with soft brown fur and large, innocent eyes. His species had never known violence. They were artists and poets, loved by everyone in the galaxy for their kindness. Pip watched the humans approach. He saw their blank helmets and their massive weapons. He saw the way they moved together, like a single organism designed for destruction. He saw Captain Jin at their head, her eyes scanning the area like a predator looking for prey. His small body began to shake. "Greetings," Yuna said warmly as she reached the delegates. "I am Ambassador Yuna Park. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. We have brought our finest soldiers as an honor guard to show our respect for the Galactic Council." Pip tried to respond. He opened his mouth to speak words of welcome, but his legs gave out and he collapsed to the floor. "Medical emergency." One of the delegates shouted. Others rushed to help Pip. The Marines did not move. They had been ordered to stay in formation unless there was a direct threat. To them, a small furry alien fainting was not a threat. To the alien delegates, the Marines' lack of reaction was even more terrifying. They did not care that someone had collapsed in fear. They simply stood there, waiting, watching. High Counselor Mara arrived an hour later. She found Ambassador Yuna sitting alone in a waiting room, looking confused and worried. The Marines had been asked to stay on their ship. The alien delegates had refused to continue the meeting with armed humans present. "Ambassador Park," Mara said, her crystalline voice carefully controlled. "I must ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly." "Of course," Yuna said. "Anything." Mara sat down across from her. Up close, Yuna could see that the alien's crystal body was flickering with dark colors. Fear, she realized. This powerful being was afraid of her. "Your soldiers," Mara said. "You call them an honor guard. A sign of respect. But Ambassador... Do you understand what we see when we look at them?" Yuna shook her head slowly. "We see death," Mara said simply. "We see 2,000 beings trained to kill. They move like predators. Their eyes track every movement. They carry weapons that could destroy this entire station in minutes." She paused. "You say they are here to protect. But protect against what? We have no weapons. We have no armies. We have never harmed anyone." "We know that," Yuna said desperately. "We believe you. But humans have learned. We have learned that the universe can be dangerous. We prepare for threats because we are afraid. We are always afraid." Mara leaned closer. "Ambassador, I have studied your species. I have read your history. I have seen what you do to each other. And I must tell you something important." Her voice dropped too. A whisper. "You are not afraid. You do not act like creatures who are afraid. Afraid creatures run. Afraid creatures hide. Afraid creatures submit to those stronger than them." She gestured at the window where the marine transport ship was visible. "You brought 2,000 killers to a peace meeting. You surrounded our emissary with 300 warships. You have enough weapons to conquer the entire galaxy." Mara's body flashed with bright, terrified colors. "That is not fear, Ambassador. That is what predators do before they hunt." Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. "No, you do not understand. We are afraid. We have always been afraid. Our fear is why we build weapons. Our fear is why we prepare for the worst. Then your fear, Mara said slowly, is the most dangerous thing in the universe. She stood up and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back one last time. We will continue negotiations. We want peace. But you must understand something, Ambassador Park. The entire galaxy now knows about humanity, and they are all asking the same question. Her crystal body dimmed. If this is how humans act when they are afraid, what happens when they are angry? Yuna had no answer. She sat alone in the empty room, wondering how humanity's fear had become the galaxy's nightmare. Liz was not an important member of the Galactic Council. She was young, barely 50 years old in a species that lived for thousands. She worked in the research department, studying new species and their cultures. Most of her work was boring: filing reports, organizing data, answering questions that nobody cared about. But when the humans arrived, everything changed. Liz had spent 6 months studying humanity. While the rest of the galaxy panicked and argued about what to do, she had quietly read every piece of human data she could find. Their history, their art, their science, their wars. She had watched their movies and listened to their music. She had learned their languages and studied their psychology. And she had discovered something incredible. Today, she stood before the full Galactic Council. Her small purple body trembled with nervousness. She was not used to speaking to such important people, but what she had to say was too important to keep quiet. Members of the council, she began, her voice shaking slightly, I believe we have made a terrible mistake. We have completely misunderstood the humans. High Counselor Mara leaned forward. Explain. Liz took a deep breath. We believe the humans are predators. We believe their military display was a threat, a sign of aggression, a warning that they intend to conquer us. She paused. But we are wrong. The humans are not predators. They are prey. Confused murmurs spread through the assembly. That is impossible, said Counselor Orin. Prey species do not build weapons. Prey species do not form armies. Prey species run and hide. Most prey species do, Liz agreed. But humans are different. Their planet was incredibly dangerous. For millions of years, they were hunted by animals bigger, faster, and stronger than them. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. They should have gone extinct. She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared. It showed ancient humans, small and weak, surrounded by massive predators. Lions, bears, wolves, creatures that could kill a human with one bite. But they did not go extinct, Liz continued. They survived. And they survived by doing something no other prey species has ever done. They became more dangerous than their predators. The hologram changed. It showed humans with spears, humans with fire, humans working together to bring down creatures 10 times their size. They learned to fight back. When something scared them, they did not run. They prepared. They planned. They built weapons. They trained. Liz looked around the assembly. This is their fear response. This is what happens when a human is afraid. They do not flee. They do not hide. They turn their fear into action. Counselor Mara's crystal body flickered with confusion. But that means... Yes, Liz said. When they surrounded Emissary Tyvus with 300 warships, they were afraid. When they brought 2,000 soldiers to a peace meeting, they were afraid. Everything they have done, every weapon they have built, comes from fear. Fear of what? Someone asked. Everything. Liz brought up another image. It showed the dark emptiness of space. For 300 years, humans have looked at the stars and wondered what might be hiding in the darkness. They did not know if the universe was friendly or hostile, so they prepared for the worst. She gestured at the human fleet, still visible on long-range sensors. This fleet was not built for us. It was built for the possibility of us. Humans spent centuries preparing for the moment when something unknown would appear from the void. They built enough weapons to fight a galaxy because they did not know what a galaxy might throw at them. The council sat in stunned silence. "They are not conquerors," Liz said softly. "They are survivors. Every war they fought, every weapon they built, was about survival. They are terrified, council members. They have always been terrified, and their terror made them the most powerful species in the known universe." Far away, on Earth, Ambassador Una Park was having a similar revelation. She sat in President Day One's office, along with General Hyan Cho. A decoded transmission from the Galactic Council played on the screen. It contained years of alien communications about humanity. The Council had accidentally included it in their diplomatic package, not realizing that human computers could break their encryption. "They think we declared war," Una said for the 10th time. "They genuinely believe we were threatening them." General Hyan rubbed his tired eyes. "I still do not understand. We were being careful. We were protecting ourselves. That is exactly the problem." Una stood up and walked to the window. "Their species have never known war. They have never needed to protect themselves from anything. When they see weapons, they do not think of safety. They think of attack." President Day One nodded slowly. "So when we showed them our fleet, we showed them our capacity for violence. And to species who have never been violent, that was the most terrifying thing imaginable." The three of them sat in silence, processing this information. "So what do we do?" Hyan finally asked. "We cannot remove our weapons. We cannot pretend we are not dangerous. The galaxy has seen what we are capable of." Una turned back to face them. "Maybe that is not what we need to do. Maybe we need to show them why we are the way we are. They see our weapons and think we want to hurt them. We need to help them understand that our weapons exist because we never want to be hurt." "Will they believe us?" President Day One asked. "I do not know." Una thought about the aliens she had met. Their gentle bodies, their peaceful nature, their complete inability to understand violence. "But I have to try. I have to help them see that our fear is not their enemy. Our fear could be their greatest protector." She began to form a plan. She would go back to the council station. But this time, she would go differently. No fleet, no soldiers, no weapons. She would go alone, vulnerable, defenseless, just like Emissary Tyvis had come to Earth. If she wanted the galaxy to trust humanity, she would have to trust the galaxy first. Back on the council station, Liz finished her presentation. The delegates were whispering among themselves, processing everything they had learned. High Counselor Mara rose from her seat. "If what you say is true, then humanity is not our enemy. But that raises a new question." Her crystal body glowed with uncertain colors. "If humans are driven by fear, and their fear makes them build armies, what happens when they find something to truly be afraid of?" Liz did not have an answer, but deep in her heart, she felt something she had never felt before. It was strange and unfamiliar, but somehow exciting. She felt safe, because somewhere out there, a species of terrified survivors had built enough weapons to fight the entire universe. And if something bad ever came from the dark spaces between the stars, humanity would be ready. Their fear would protect everyone. Ambassador Una Park arrived at the Galactic Council station alone. Her ship was small, barely large enough for one person. It carried no weapons, no shields, no armor. It was, by human standards, completely defenseless. By galactic standards, it was the bravest thing anyone had ever done. The council delegates watched in amazement as the tiny vessel docked. They had expected another display of military power, another 1,000 soldiers, another warning of human strength. Instead, they received a single woman in simple clothes, walking through the empty corridors with nothing to protect her. High Counselor Mara met her at the entrance to the Great Hall. "Ambassador Park," she said, her crystal voice filled with wonder. "You came alone." Una smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "You came to our solar system alone. You trusted us completely. I thought it was time I returned the favor." The Great Hall was full. 4,000 species had sent representatives to hear what humanity had to say. They filled every seat, every corner, every available space. Some had traveled for months to be here. They all wanted to understand the strange, terrifying creatures from Earth. Una walked to the center of the room. She had no prepared speech, no presentation, no data or images to show. She simply stood there, small and vulnerable, surrounded by thousands of aliens who feared her. "You are right to be afraid of us," she began. Murmurs of shock spread through the assembly. This was not what they expected. "We are dangerous," Una continued. "We have killed billions of our own kind. We have created weapons that could destroy worlds. We have spent our entire history fighting, surviving, and preparing for the next threat." She paused. "By your standards, we are monsters." The delegates shifted uncomfortably. "But let me tell you why." Una's voice grew stronger. "Our planet was not kind to us. From the moment our species began, we were prey. Everything wanted to eat us. The animals, the weather, the very ground beneath our feet. We should have died. We should have gone extinct like so many other species." She looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as she could. "But we did not die. We learned to fight. When predators hunted us, we hunted them back. When nature tried to destroy us, we built shelter. When disease swept through our population, we created medicine. Every challenge that tried to kill us made us stronger." Una's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "And through all of this, we were afraid. We have always been afraid. Our fear is our oldest companion. It whispers to us every day, 'Be ready. Be prepared. Something is coming.'" She spread her arms wide. "So we prepared. We built weapons we hoped we would never use. We trained soldiers we prayed would never fight. We pointed our eyes at the stars and wondered what terrors might be hiding in the darkness." High Counselor Mara stepped forward. "And then you met us." "And then we met you," Una agreed. "Peaceful species. Gentle species. Species who have never known war or violence or fear." She laughed softly. "You have no idea how strange that seems to us. How impossible. We spent centuries preparing to fight whatever we found in space. And what we found was ... kindness. But you still came with warships," Mara said. "You still brought soldiers to our station." "Because we did not know," Una said. "We did not know you were peaceful. We did not know the galaxy was safe. We only knew that the universe is vast and dark and full of unknowns. So we brought our weapons, not to threaten you, but to protect ourselves from what might have been." She took a deep breath. "You see our military and think we want to conquer. But I promise you, we want nothing less. We have had enough of war, enough of death, enough of fighting. We built our weapons because we were scared. And now that we know, we have nothing to fear from you ... She smiled. "We would very much like to be friends." The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, a small furry delegate stood up. It was Pip, the creature who had fainted when the Marines arrived. His voice was quiet but clear. "Ambassador Park," he said, If humanity is so afraid, why did you come here alone? Why did you make yourself vulnerable? Yuna turned to face him. Because being afraid does not mean being unable to trust. It means being brave enough to try, even when everything inside you screams to run. She walked closer to Pip and knelt down to his level. I am terrified right now. My heart is beating so fast I can barely breathe. Every instinct I have is telling me that I am in danger. She smiled gently. But I am here anyway, because some things are more important than fear. Pip looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out one small paw and touched her hand. It was the first time a human and his species had ever made physical contact. I think, Pip said softly, I would like to be your friend. The vote happened 3 days later. The Galactic Council decided, by an overwhelming majority, to accept humanity. But they did not accept them as ordinary members. They created a new role, one that had never existed before. Guardians of the Galactic Council. It was an honor and a responsibility. Humanity's fleet would no longer be seen as a threat. It would be a shield. Their soldiers would not be feared. They would be protectors. All the weapons they had built in fear would now serve a new purpose. They would defend everyone. 5 years later, the first real threat emerged. Something came from the space between galaxies. Something ancient and hungry. Something that had consumed countless civilizations before the Galactic Council even existed. The peaceful species panicked. They had no weapons, no armies, no way to fight back. For the first time in 12,000 years, they faced extinction. But they were not alone. General Hyansho commanded the combined human fleet. 2,000 warships formed a wall of fire between the threat and the innocent species behind them. Captain Jin Seo led the ground forces, ready to fight on any world that needed defending. And Ambassador Yuna Park coordinated the alliance, keeping 4,000 species united in the face of darkness. On the bridge of the command ship, an alien officer approached General Hyan. The young creature was trembling with fear. General, he asked, are you not afraid? The enemy is vast. The enemy is powerful. We have never faced anything like this. Hyan looked out at the dark mass approaching their position. It was massive. It was terrifying. It was everything humanity had feared when they first looked at the stars. He smiled. I am afraid, he said calmly. I am always afraid. Fear is an old friend. He turned to face his crew. Humans and aliens working together, preparing for battle. But that is exactly why we are going to win. Our fear made us strong. Our fear made us ready. And our fear. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice reached every ship, every soldier, every species that had placed their trust in humanity. Our fear will keep them safe. The battle began. And for the first time in history, the galaxy discovered what happened when humanity's fear found a worthy target. It was glorious. It was terrible. And in the end, it was exactly what the universe needed. The monsters from Earth had become its greatest protectors.